Hello, everyone. I had some technical difficulties with my mic. I appreciate someone in my Twitch chat telling me it's fixed now. Hopefully, it sounds fine again and it stays fine. So, I'm gonna speed run right now of the previous matches that I had talked about. Um, Back to the 0 hour. We had Jack Perry versus Hook for the FTW title. I had Hook retaining just because they're doing an angle on Collision that Jack Perry's going to be retiring the FTW Championship. Doubt that's going to happen. Plus, this is a title that Taz had brought in. I feel like just keep it on Hook for right now, and if he would like to retire, because again, Hook is Taz's son, then the other 0 hour match during the pre-show is Better Than You Bebe versus Aussie Open. I took Cole and MJF winning this just because they can add the layer of teasing that they'll stay together just because they are tag champions, but it's still going to be that whole lingering in the back of their head like, oh, you can still, turn on me. And then plus they're going to be main eventing the show anyways. And then other match was Sting and Darby Allin versus Swerve Strickland and now Christian Cage because they removed AR Fox from the match. People are saying backstage heat was what led to this. Maybe, I don't know. Christian Cage does make sense just because Darby Allin will be fighting Luchasaurus at All Out for the TNT Championship. And then who I have winning from that is Sting and Darby Allin. It's just so Darby has momentum riding to All Out. Now that we've caught up now, just a little quick speed run through those matches just so I don't have to spend another 20-ish minutes going through that again. Alrighty. I was talking about the Stadium Stampede match with Blackpool Combat Club, Santana and Ortiz with the best friends Orange Cassidy, Penta, and Eddie Kingston. As I was saying, there was another change in that because it was supposed to be a 6-man, not tag, but 6-on-6. But Ray Phoenix is unfortunately able to make it because of his visa, so he's going to have travel issues. So they did an angle on Dynamite that they injured Ray Phoenix, so now he's not going to be coming to that. And then who knows who the other mystery person for Blackpool Combat Club was going to be. But that doesn't matter now because they're going to be doing 5-on-5 in the first International Stadium Stampede match. As I was saying, I'm going to go with Blackpool Combat Club just because they lost that blood and guts. So they do need the momentum a little bit more. And then plus, the best friends, Penta and Orange Cassidy and Eddie, aren't really a unit when you're looking at Blackpool Combat Club when it's 3 of them. And I mean, of course, Santana and Ortiz, but they'll work together with the Blackpool Combat Club just because Eddie's on the other side and they're just going to go at it. I believe Eddie's just going to be mainly focused on Claudio during the entire match, which will probably be like the main factor of why they lose. I hope it still leads up to them doing Claudio versus Eddie for the ROH World title because they were supposed to do that at Death Before Dishonor, but couldn't just because Eddie Kingston was in New Japan doing the G1 Climax tournament, so then they changed plans there. So I hope this is a setup to that, because again, after this you have All Out, and then after that there's only one more pay-per-view for AEW, which is Full Gear, set in November, and I'll talk about that a bit later because I had made a recent discovery of where it's gonna be and when it's gonna be at. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Blackpool Combat Club with John Moxley, Yuta, Claudio, and Santana Ortiz winning that. It should be a really fun match. Could possibly be the match stealer just because it is basically Extreme Rules. They're gonna be all in around the crowd fighting in Wembley Stadium, Again, it should be a really fun match. Should be really fun. And then we got the Trios title coming up next. Now we have the Acclaimed and no longer Daddy Ass. He said Daddy Ass isn't going to make the trip, but a badass Billy Gunn will be making the trip to London against the Trios champions, House of Black. Now, I am wondering if they're going to do, because House of Black, whenever they defend their titles, they do their own, their own stipulation that they choose a stipulation, then the team that they're fighting can also choose a stipulation to counteract with them. Now, the past couple of times, the Acclaimed, when they have fought against House of Black, they have opted not to do a stipulation when they're fighting. They're like, no, we don't need a stipulation. Now, I honestly hope that changes. I hope that they do stipulation, or I mean, they could just do a regular trios match, just so they can cool down. Because I'm not saying this is the order, the way that of course, that I'm talking about it, but depending on where this lands on the card, maybe this could use a break from the Stadium Stampede. But I'm gonna go with the Acclaimed and badass Billy Gunn winning this, just because they teased Billy Gunn retiring, and then of course they did the whole thing like with Cody, because Cody had put his boots in the middle of the ring, and then Malachi was like, "No, you're not retiring just yet. I'm gonna beat you down," kind of thing. And then Cody came back, and then Trey Lance to the Cowboys. Hello, Poe, my mod. Niners had told me something different. That we could be possibly trading him to the Buccaneers. Sorry for the interruption, since I am a 49ers fan, as you can see. Just get a little off topic. That would be interesting, though. Now, back on topic with the Trios title match. But welcome in, Poe. Again, I'm going to go with Acclaimed and badass Billy Gunn, just because they're doing the whole I'm going to tease retirement, come back, and then I'm going to do this one last final run till I possibly decide to retire. Oh no, you're good. You're good. We are a variety podcast. I know we're on the topic of wrestling, but again, I was intrigued by what you said. But as I was saying, again, that whole tease, I'm retiring, then come back. I feel like they're gonna do this one little final run, give Billy Gunn a title belt, because there's nothing really much for him to do anyways, because again, he was just mainly being the manager to the Acclaimed at this point. I gonna say this, I had wished that they didn't take the tag team championships off the Acclaim, just so they can do this whole FTR versus the Gun Club thing. I think that rivalry didn't really need the tag titles. And that's why I was a little very irritated when they had lost. But if you're gonna do this trio title, so it includes all of them, I'm totally down for this. It makes sense. I know House of Black puts on bangers. Like, I love how they really gel well together when they're wrestling in a trios match. But again, it all depends if they're going to do the whole stipulation thing that House of Black likes to do for their trios matches, where they choose a stipulation, which they really don't choose a stipulation, because they're like, oh, we're already good enough, we don't need a stipulation. We're giving you the option to choose a stipulation to try and beat us. And as I mentioned before, previously, they didn't do any stipulation, but maybe that could change. But like I said, it just depends on where it is on the card. Or I mean, unless Tony Khan doesn't care about, like giving people a little bit of a little break, like on the energy levels. Unless if they're just gonna go back to back, like, oh, we're gonna do the Stadium Stampede match, and then, the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn are gonna choose uh, Texas Death Match as their stipulation, or any kind of no holds bar, no rules kind of thing. Who knows? But again, it should be a solid match. Again, I really love the Acclaimed, and especially when they were doing stuff with the Gun Club and just growing in popularity. The fact that I got to see them, believe twice now, yeah, because the first time they had came to California, they were more in my area for a Rampage, or it was live for Rampage, but after they did a taping of what's their show called, their YouTube show that they did, Dark. There, it was Dark. It wasn't Elevation. It was Dark that they did, because they did two tapings of Dark on that Rampage show that I had went to, and the second one that they had came out. Then the other time that we saw them, I know it had made news. It was during a taping of Rampage, and Max Caster messed up on his rap. And again, we were taping, so they could do as many takes as they could. I remember the crowd was chanting, you effed up, and that was pretty funny. So I really enjoy these fellas. I know they were kind of feuding with QTV. I really hope that feud is done and they don't try to interfere with anything. So again, I'm locking in with the Acclaimed and badass Billy Gunn on this one. But this match should be a banger, because again, House of Black be putting on bangers with their trios titles matches, because their match with CMFTR was brilliant. I loved it. I was marking out, as people want to say in the community, because I really enjoyed it. But let's move on to another trios match. So we have the Golden Elite. We have Kenny Omega, Kota Ibushi, and Hangman Adam Page going up against Bullet Club Gold and Koteshka. This should be interesting, because again, Kenny has been feuding with, especially with Don Callis, because it started off with Don Callis. Build has been alright. They're just bouncing off the fact that Kenny's already been beefing with Kakesha, so they're not really impacting it. I'm gonna go with the Golden Elite winning this, and then again, we get it. This is our second match seeing Kota Ibushi in AEW, so of course there's another showing of him to make him look strong and stuff. But I see him winning, and then just because All Out is literally the week after, we'll probably actually have a one-on-one of Kenny and Kakesha, which should be a banger too. But I really don't have much to say about this, because again, there isn't really a build to the match, because they're just basically just going off on that. It's like, I kind of want to throw this out there though. It's like, I wouldn't mind seeing Hangman turn heel for a second on this, where they start to show a little bit of tension between the team, which again should be interesting on what they do here. But again, this card overall is pretty solid. It just depends on what they actually do here to help out each other. And then, yeah, again, that's pretty much what I gotta say. Because again, there's not really a build to it. Again, other than Kenny beefing with Don Callis and whoever Don Callis is working with. That's why, as much as I had wanted to see Kenny versus Osprey 3, and again, they're probably saving it for Wrestle Kingdom. I don't mind that, but I guess this is possibly the right choice, and we can get into the next match anyways, because it does mention someone that I just said, Will Ospreay against Chris Jericho. I guess what they wanted to do, and I will admit I wasn't really enjoying much what they have been doing with Chris Jericho. Like, I really didn't like his feud with Adam Cole. It was just like it wasn't really piquing my interest. And then to some of the other people that he was feuding with, it just wasn't really my cup of tea. And then I was like, and I was like a little worried. I was like, man, like, what are they gonna do here if they still do, the whole Jericho Appreciation Society, and then it's gonna be Jericho feuding with so and so, like Ricky Starks, to mention. Is like, I figured that feud was gonna continue to build off Ricky Starks. I mean, it still did, but it didn't, because it was like, because they were just having, I believe Ricky had won their match, and then they did another match, which I believe Jericho had won. And I'm talking about, like, this is from like months ago, so I'm like really trying to remember here what they did with that. And then of course Action and Andretti had gotten involved too in there and beat Jericho, which was very interesting. And then yeah, and then of course with this feud, this is where I'm actually starting to get more interested now, because the Jericho Appreciation Society is no more. They broke up. They could have done better with their segment for breaking up, because most of the people had just repeated each other. Like, it's like you're hanging out with Don Callis and doing all these other things, and you're not really showing us love when we stuck our neck out for you, or put ourselves through a table and all these other things for you. And it's like, oh, but you didn't do this for me. And then of course Sammy, which is interesting that now he's actually being cheered, especially with all the drama that he was in. I wasn't expecting the crowd to switch already, but he's being cheered now. And he told Chris, like, whatever decision that you make, I'll still be in your corner, of course. And then when Jericho made his decision in that segment with Don Callis, he's like, yeah, dude, I'm totally gonna join you here. It's like, I'm gonna join the Don Callis family. And then Don Callis was like, yeah, oh, dude, that's awesome. Let's do this, because they're building off what Don Callis had said earlier to Chris in a segment like a while back, that because they've been friends for who knows how long. They were working with some other wrestler, and they were like, oh, I hope that you guys stay together. They're in a way trying to honor that, like, hey, we're back together now. Now let's run the company here. Like, let's take over. And in the ring during that segment, there was like a painting, because they had teased in another segment when they had the cameras on the Jericho Appreciation Society. They had talked about, they were talking about how they were not liking what Jericho was doing, and then there was a painting of Jericho and Don Callis there, and so they were saying like, oh look, it's another painting that Don got for Jericho, and then but Don didn't want to show Jericho what it was, and then Jericho's like, well, why aren't you showing me? I thought this was like a gift for me here, so why aren't you showing me? Then they eventually showed the painting, and it was basically that Don Callis was expecting Jericho to say no to him, so he had this painting set up that it was him. I'm trying to remember what the painting was. It was basically like, oh, you said no to me, so I'm just gonna basically stab you in the back, kind of thing. And then that's when Kakeshita came out again, and then Will Ospreay came out, and then beat down on Jericho. And then Sammy came out for support, and then sorry about that, just a bot message. And so then from there, from this week's Dynamite, you have the contract signing between Jericho and Ospreay, and Ospreay cuts this amazing promo that is like talking about like is like that he's gonna be doing an indie show for Rev Pro the day before the Wembley Stadium show, because he's trying to rack up as much money as he can on the indies and doing all these other shows for New Japan, racking up all this money that he can just so he can put his steps on, through school. And he's like, I'm gonna do everything that I can because this is the biggest match of his career. Wembley Stadium in front of 80,000 people. I gotta show out and win. And Jericho came back with excellent rebuttal to that, and he had brought up like a phone call that they had, and Jericho's like, you need to change your ring style, because if you don't, you're gonna end up in a wheelchair, and those other things. Like, he was like really leaning on the health here, which is interesting. And then of course Jericho was like, this is gonna be bigger than a WrestleMania. This is gonna be bigger than a Tokyo Dome. No, because this is the biggest match show of my career. And very excellent promo segment from both of these lads. It was really good. And then of course they did the contract signing, and then of course with every contract signing, it goes into a brawl as it always does. And so they brawl and all these up there. Now, who do I got winning this match? It's going to be hopefully a solid match. And I'm going to go with Will Ospreay winning this match here, because it makes more sense for Ospreay to win. Jericho has literally done everything that he's done in his career, winning 8 world titles in like 8 different companies, and again, he's just had a fantastic career. Hall of Famer when he does decide to hang it up. Amazing band, by the way. Fozzie's going to be performing at Wembley. Believe that they're performing tonight somewhere, because they're already in London. And Chris Jericho has said that they'll be performing in Wembley and a few other things. And then there we go. Sorry about that. But I'm gonna go with the Ospreay, and Ospreay's probably having a career year, And that's saying a lot because he's been putting on great matches wherever he's been going. And then I know he had his little injury scare right there that was like very serious. And again, just leaning on what Jericho had said, if you don't change your ring style, you're not gonna be here anymore. You're gonna be in that wheelchair. How are you gonna be able to take care of your 4-year old stepson, kind of thing, which is what led to the brawl. And then but I'm gonna go with Osprey. And then I mean, just like he had said, I beat Kenny Omega, I beat Okada, and then I'm gonna beat Chris Jericho in the span of 2 months. So I'm locking in there with Osprey. So it should be very fun. Hopefully, a really good match. And plus, Osprey's technically in his hometown, and Tony Khan has this thing where he likes to give the hometown guy the big win, something WWE doesn't want to do because they don't want to do it for Drew McIntyre. They didn't want to do it for Sami Zayn with Roman. But moving on, and speaking of hometown guys here, we shall get into the women's title match. Again, the only women's title on the card, and it's annoying to me how they've been handling the women's division as of lately. Same with WWE. WWE hasn't been doing it better here, so I'm not gonna say except for NXT. I will say NXT's women's division as of right now has been doing a solid job, but main roster barely anything because I'm just like they haven't really done much with Rhea Ripley. I know she's gonna be finally defending her title on a pay-per-view since Backlash at Payback against Raquel Rodriguez. Then you have the whole Trish and Becky, which should have ended at SummerSlam but didn't because they scrapped that along with Rhea and Raquel. Then yeah, it's just not a lot going on for the women's division and over there on the main roster for WWE. And then you look at AEW, who also have a loaded women's division of excellent talent. I look at Sky Blue, the way that they had been pushing her, making her look an excellent wrestler as well. And then, Chris Statlander, the TBS champion. And then we have this match, which this feud, I believe, now has been going on for almost about a year. Almost about a year now. Because this feud basically started when Saraya had debuted on AEW. And then, of course, she had her match against Britt Baker. And then just from there, it's just been, it's going to be Homegrown versus the Outsiders, because that's the name of their stable. And it just hasn't been clicking with me because it's literally the same thing over and over again. And then you have Britt Baker dealing with a back injury. And I know a lot of people were talking about her performances lately in matches. They just have been really sloppy. And you have how they've handled the women's title. I figured Toni Storm would have been still walking in as champion. Like my thought process was that they were going to do Toni Storm versus Britt Baker. And they're like, okay, well, we're going to put the title on Britt Baker. And then I believe Dynamite not 2 weeks ago, but like 3 weeks ago, where they had Sheeta do a roll up pin on her and wins the title. And then, like, literally the first thing that came up to mind, like, oh, she's possibly a transitional champion. And I love Sheeta. Sheeta's like probably one of my favorite female wrestlers. Like in general, it's her and Bianca. Like those like and Oscar too. And 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 Trish. Trish has been doing a really good heel run. So like those are like my top four right now. Like looking at that have been putting out excellent matches and ring work. So she wins the title. She is the first person in the women's division to hold all three versions of the women's title, because they when they first debuted the women's title, it was like this small title, and I was like, okay. They debuted the second version, which was a bigger version of that smaller belt, and then they debuted another new one, which is kind of looks like the international title, but it'll be interesting. And then of course you have Soraya and Tony Storm in this. So again, you have two homegrown versus the outsiders still, and I'll say I would. It sucks that Jamie Hayter got injured because again, hometown girl, and if they still and she was healthy, it probably that probably still would have been Tony Storm versus Jamie Hayter. Um, but again, I hope she's doing fine and heals well and has a speedy recovery, because she's also been an excellent wrestler. She would have been in that top four that I had mentioned, but since she hasn't, she's injured and hasn't been wrestling much, I can't, include her in there and just yet until she comes back and gets in some bangers in. But for this match, I'm gonna go with Saraya, because again, hometown. This is literally her house. This is her house, just like all of her other promos where she says that this is her house. This is literally her house. So they're gonna definitely have her win. If they make her defend that all out, it'll probably be against Britt Baker. They'll rerun the match that they done a year ago, and then probably Saraya will retain, because I don't see the point of having someone win a belt only to hold it for like a week or so, then just automatically drop it. So it'll be interesting what they do here. But I'm locking in with Saraya, as I mentioned before. Hometown girl, walking into Wembley. It makes sense, and like as I mentioned previously in the Osprey and Jericho, that Tony Khan does do the hometown person winning in their big match kind of thing, because I mean they did it with Darby in Seattle, and then I'm trying to think who else that they had done with the whole hometown hero wins the match, because I know they've done it a lot, but like the whole Darby win in Seattle was the first thing that popped in my head. But yeah, I'm locking in with Saraya just for those reasons. Maybe they could do an angle where they start to create some dissension between Tony and Saraya in the group. But yeah, again, as much as I would like Sheeta to retain, because she honestly deserves it, because again, her main title run was in the middle of the pandemic in front of barely anyone in the crowd, and that's why she should deserve a good proper title run. And but yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Saraya here, unfortunately. Alrighty, we got how many matches left? 1, 2, 3. We have 3 matches left. 3 matches left. And then, of course, I'll go over my little tiebreakers, of course. Alrighty. Just checking something real quick. Bet. Okay. On to the other match. Or, let me get a quick drink of water real quick. Alrighty. Next match that we got, it is for the real world title, as CM Punk has finally revealed what was in the bag, and it was the title that he didn't lose in a match because he was stripped of the title and we're approaching the 1 year anniversary of Brawl Out, as people want to dub it now, not All Out but Brawl Out, because of the brawl that had happened during the media scrum between CM Punk and the Elite, and then they literally make this Saturday show just for CM Punk, and just so they can keep him away from the Elite, so there's no beef going on, no backstage brawls. So they do that, and it was interesting to see that bag. So I was like, oh well, the world title's in there probably. It was probably very obvious, but it was like then they put it on hold how they did it, and then they made the official reveal when this was after the yes, it was after the Owen Hart tournament when Ricky Starks did the dirty pen to win in the cup, and then CM Punk was like, "All right, well, I'm gonna show you what's in my bag. It's the world title." And then he draws his X that he has on his taped fists, and he puts that on the title. And then they've been doing this, and I don't mind it because against Samoa Joe, excellent wrestler, Cali guy. So of course I'm gonna be rooting for him. I don't have him winning, unfortunately, because him having the world title doesn't fit in with the future picture that they'll do later on in the towards the end of the year going into 2024. But I have CM Punk winning this. I do like the whole setup that they've been doing, because it was Samoa Joe that had issued the challenge because he was pissed off that CM Punk had beat him during the Owen Hart tournament. So then, he was pissed off about it, called him out. He's like, I want a title shot at the match. Punk had said no. So then Samoa Joe was like, all right then, well, if you're not gonna give me a match, I'm gonna get that match on my own then. And then again, during that brilliant trios title match on Collision against the House of Black, you see Punk not be on camera for a while, and then you hear the crowd too react, and then they pan the camera over to Samoa Joe choking out CM Punk in the crowd, and so he's like, okay, you got my attention now, kind of thing, because then it was the Golden Vampire that CM Punk dressed up as, and attack Samoa Joe, and then try to do a GTS. I was talking to a few people in the wrestling community and my community that I'm a part of. A lot of them said that they could have done a submission match for this, which, I mean, true, because it does help. Because if anyone did see the Golden Vampires GTS, it didn't really look that great, and both of them have excellent submission finishers. You have the Anaconda Vice from CM Punk, and then you have the chokehold that Samoa Joe does. So it makes sense. I mean, unless the Muscle Buster is more Samoa Joe's main finisher, but I continue to still see him do the coquina clutch. There we go. I remembered the name. But it's an interesting. I do like the build to it. As long as you have it's decent build, and then plus there's history because again they're excellent matches in Ring of Honor in their early days. It's gonna be a solid match. Again, I'm gonna go with CM Punk, and the reason I'm going with Punk is as I mentioned, you have to look further on, going into 2024, because again they didn't do CM Punk versus MJF. Because remember when CM Punk had beat John Moxley for the title, and they did their Casino Royale thing with the chip. MJF was the one that won that chip, and then when CM Punk had won, they cut a little, promo segment of the whole the devil's back, and the title was mine, and plus this would be in their rubber match because MJF won the first match, and then their second match they did that amazing dog collar match at Revolution. I believe it was Revolution. And then CM Punk won that one, and then of course Brawl Out happened, so they couldn't really do anything because that's when they stripped him off the title, put the title back on John Moxley, and then they did the whole setup. Okay, well I'm cashing in my chip at Full Gear. This is my title here. MJF wins the title, and then they had the little it's like when the AEW tag title match during one of the promo segments, MJF did briefly mention the CM Punk, and then CM Punk did briefly mention MJF in some promos too, because again he's the real champion about in AEW, and so that's my future that I'm seeing that they'll maybe build up to, and it does kind of make sense too, because again you're also going to be feuding with the FTR and stuff as well, but there's like the big but, and I'll get into that because of the next match, but I'm gonna go CM Punk just so he can feud with MJF after. They'll do their whole Cena CM Punk SummerSlam thing, unify the title so we have one champion thing at maybe Full Gear, possibly. Because again, Full Gear's in November, so after All In, All Out, you literally got until November to build up another thing. Which, if anyone was watching at all during the CM Punk and MJF feud, that was money. The promos that they were cutting against each other were excellent. So again, I'm locking in with Punk on this one. Alrighty. Next match, I got FTR versus the Young Bucks. Again, another rubber match here that we'll be talking about for the AEW tag titles here. Now, my original thinking was FTR win the tag titles, but just to bring up recent news, anyone that didn't see, one half of the tag titles, Cash Wheeler, was arrested for aggravated assault. No charges have been charged just yet. A lot of people were thinking that this match wasn't going to happen because they didn't know if he was going to be able to travel to London, because I know London, just like Canada, have these strict laws, like if you have any kind of criminal record, you basically can't travel to the country. So a lot of people are like, okay, well, is this match still going to happen? And then I was one of those people because I didn't know if they were still going to have this match happen. And then they continue to promote the whole face-off between FTR and the Young Bucks on Dynamite, which was a solid promo, by the way. that they were going back and forth, and then they talked about like that we're the reason why you're even here in AEW. Like we're the ones that brought you in and hired you and all this other stuff. And hell, and then towards the end of the promo, that I'm trying to get the proper words, that they're like we even it was basically in the lines that we gave you your name because FTR basically stands for F the Revival, which was their previous name in WWE. So then they're like thinking, and basically FTR's thing was like we're putting we're making sure our legacy is set in stone here, which it's solid. And again, I would have went with FTR, but again, we don't know what exactly is going to be happening. Like, say if they did retain, but the stuff with Cash Wheeler gets worse, and other stuff start to come up on that possible charge if he is charged. They would have to vacate the titles potentially there if they were retain. But then there's another factor here. This is all in something that the Young Bucks helped create with Cody Rhodes. That, this is pretty much their baby here. And I can see them winning it. And that's why I'm going to go with them winning it. They are an excellent tag team. They're also California guys. They actually grew up near me when I discovered that when I went to the Rampage show that I had went to, and they put on that excellent tag match that I got to see against the Lucha Bros. So I'm gonna go with the Young Bucks. Again, if there wasn't the issues going on with Cash, it would have been a whole different story. But again, I do like the little solid build, and then they even help each other out, and then FTR's reasons like, oh well, the reason why we helped you out because we want you at 100% at All In. Like we want this to be the best tag team match ever, and and whoever wins this is the best tag team in wrestling, and I do like that. But again, it's going to be a great match, but I'm going to have to go with the Young Bucks here. Now, we are here at the main event of this, and then after that I will discuss the other, because I had 3 tiebreaker questions. I did mention one of them was if any surprise appearances were going to happen. And I mean, one of the other questions does involve this match of who's turning heel, of Cole or MJF. Because I mean, this could still possibly happen here, that they do the whole heel turn on someone, or they'll still do, well, we're best buddies, and we're brochachos. But they had an excellent match. Their first match that ended in a draw because of the time limit, and it's tough. But it's like I want, just like I had basically revealed who I pretty much picked when I talked about the CM Punk match, is that it should be Punk versus MJF, just because you'll get excellent promos out of it, and then they'll do the whole unification thing. And then what this has been excellent. They've changed throughout their entire thing, where you see Cole be more like MJF here and there, and you see MJF be like Adam Cole here and there. And they're like, again, they're we're best friends now. We're gonna hug it out. And, even when we have that little brief disagreement going on. We're gonna hug it out because we're brochachos. Again, I really enjoyed the builds, the segments that they're doing, their bro hangout vignettes that they put out, and then especially the recent one just to go up against Aussie Open. But I'm gonna go with MGF here to win this, and it's gonna be a solid match, the biggest match of both of their careers, being in Wembley Stadium. MGF at the first ever All In opened All In. Now he's going to be main eventing. And I'm a big mark when it comes to MJF just because of how well he stays in character on camera and then even off camera. Like he's still that a-hole to people. And then it's going to be an excellent match. As much as I want Adam Cole to win this, because Adam Cole does deserve the world title, it's just not his time just yet. Because, again, their MGF has just been teasing this entire bidding war 2024. And then I think that will elevate it if his contract does expire as he is still the world champion. And then again, to go on and feud with Punk, because Punk literally did the same thing. His contract was up. He won the WWE title in WWE, and then left and kissed and waved goodbye to Vince, and then they could maybe do something similar, have Tony Khan out there freaking out, but I'm gonna go with MJF. Now, this is just for tiebreaker reasons on who is going to turn heel. I'm gonna go with Adam Cole here, and again, it still could still be MJF to turn heel because he's has a dynamite diamond ring, and pop it out and hit Cole. He might even use it during the match, maybe, but I feel like it's Cole because we all expect to MJF to be that the scumbag that he said, like in his promo. He's like, I'm a scumbag, but I'm ready to be your guys' scumbag. I'm gonna be the babyface scumbag here. So I can see Adam Cole turning on him, and then of course you have the little altercations that MJF has with Roderick Strong and the Kingdom going on in those right there. And then, Adam Cole gets to be like, why are you being mean to Roderick Strong? Because he is my friend. And they did tease that thing right there, too, when MJF was talking all this trash to Roderick Strong. And they could do something like that during the main event as well. But it'll be interesting. I don't mind heel Adam Cole. Heel Adam Cole is amazing. But I'm going to go with him. And that's one of the tiebreaker questions that I have set. Again, the other one was like if any surprises were happening. I'm going to go with, an ECW legend coming in during the FTW title match. Because again, Taz and ECW and all them guys are real tight. So they'll help out Hook to retain. And then the other one, I put like the first weapon introduced during the Stadium Stampede match. It could literally be anything, but I'm gonna go with like a steel chair because that's usually one of the first weapons brought out. If not, it's a kendo stick. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing else that I really have to talk about All In other than I'm actually really excited about this show. Even though again most of the builds for the card haven't been the best, but a lot of good wrestling here on this card. So it will be an excellent show hopefully. And then yeah. and then you have All Out next week. So I'll probably do an All Out predictions podcast as well when that is all set, when they have the match card set for that. I will probably be doing a payback um, podcast too. But yeah, I know to anyone in my Discord and that had seen what I was going to be doing, I was supposed to do a Ninja Turtles podcast as well. And that didn't happen because we have the hurricane over here. So I decided to cancel that. I'm going to probably reschedule that sometime in June. Or not June, September. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it here. So I'm going to pull up OBS real quick. There we go. So this is goodbye to YouTube. If you guys enjoy this, please like, comment your predictions for All In and what could possibly happen, and then be crazy about it. Throw a curveball out there. What could possibly happen at All In? But yeah, if you really enjoy what I gotta say, if you agree with me, disagree with me, you know, beyond, say something. Say something comments. We'll find some common ground. But yeah, appreciate it, and goodbye for now, YouTube.